Welcome to this Adventures in Discipleship, to our time together as we think about following Jesus and all of the things that he calls us to do and who to be. We're finishing our time on that element of following Jesus, of being a disciple in giving. There is so much in the Bible on giving, but we are focusing on 2 Corinthians chapters 8 and 9. And we'll finish up today with chapter 9, verses 8 through 15. As you read that section of the scripture that speaks so clearly about giving, I'd like you to think about a couple points. In verse 8, as you read that, ask yourself this: does my attitude toward sharing change as I read that? God addresses our fears about giving right in that verse. Ask yourself, does that change my perspective on sharing? God also tells so clearly in that verse that he gives us abundantly. When you realize that, believe it, ask yourself, does that change my attitude toward sharing? In verse 11, we are told so clearly the results that are intended by God's gifts to us. Those results are listed out very, very clearly in all those verses after. It's supposed to result in thanksgiving. Verse 11, and then verse 12, that as your giving supplies the needs of the saints, it results in thanksgiving. In verse 13, the obedience of faith results in glorifying God. In verse 14, that the sharing, the obedience of faith, yields prayers of thanksgiving from others for God's grace in you. And then finally, that glorious verse, verse 15, thanks be to God for his indescribable gift. That's a thanksgiving that reaches even into the heart of the one who wrote this piece of scripture. Inspired by the Spirit, he cannot contain just giving advice to us, but praises God for how his gifts keep on giving. May it be so in your heart too. I'm so thankful that you are a disciple of Jesus. And as we go through these adventures in discipleship together, I hope they encourage you in your walk.